Welcome back to part three of our series of Oak and Fern talking about this broader cultural, community, astrological theme of Pluto in Aquarius, North Node in Aquarius. And this week we have a very dynamic eclipse happening on August 30th, or actually, no, it's August 27th. Wow, coming up sooner than I thought. And this is going to be a Sun in Virgo, Moon in Pisces eclipse. So we've got lots of juicy material to talk about. And I just want to start off. Oak and I were discussing some of the responses we've been getting so far to this series, and it hasn't been out all that long, but it's really interesting because we have been getting private texts and emails really reflecting an appreciation for this discussion and kind of a review of some of our perspective on the history of the reclaiming community and everything we've been talking about. But it's really interesting, I think, and I think Oak also does, that publicly we haven't been getting any comments. We haven't been getting a whole lot of likes on the videos. And we were kind of like, what's that all about? Why do people feel safe to contact us privately, personally, but not so much to voice their reflections or opinions in public? So, yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit more about that and how it links into this broader conversation. So, Oak, what do you think about this?
Well, deja vu. Deja vu. This
Deja
is
vu. Okay.
deja vu. I mean, I don't know because this medium is very different for me. I haven't done this before
Mhm.
um, with a YouTube channel, but this happened to me for actually decades when I was in reclaiming. I would I would go out on a limb and say something like that. I think I talked last time about saying it's problematic to have one person in charge in two positions of power. I got tons of support, back channel, right? I got back channel. Thank you. This is great. When I wrote my articles for the quarterly, I got tons of private response of support and very, very, very little um, public. I mean, especially on the listserv when in the public listserv, I mean, next to nil. I'd get lots of lots of back channel that this is great, and next to nothing because I think one of the things to really recognize is the power, I mean, the power of community. I'm glad we're talking about community because
Mhm.
so many people, there's a loneliness epidemic in this country, right? People feel
Mm.
isolated. People need community. And we have community. Reclaiming was a community. And people are very afraid of losing their community, and they're willing to put up with all sorts of bullshit to
Mm.
keep it. Now, some people I talked about before with the rise of witch camp culture, there started to be more self-interest in being in a position of power, being a witch camp teacher. So if you want to be a witch camp teacher, and there money became involved, right? Money became involved. And, when does a movement become a market, right? It became
Mhm.
a bit of a
Oh, yeah,
market,
that's a good one. Yeah.
right? When does
When
a
does a
movement become,
movement become a market? Yeah, I like that.
right?
Mhm.
And, you know, the fear, what keeps something that isn't kosher, that isn't right, what keeps
Mhm.
it going?
Mhm.
Fear, fear, fear of being ousted. And I can tell, more stories of like what happens when you speak up, and not just me. And I want to say too, it can sound like I definitely was a target because I wrote my articles in the quarterly,
Mhm.
uh, and because that original email where I just said something so simple, and um, but there's always been people. you
Yeah.
know, we talked about the ICT. Like what happened eventually is there was a group of us who were just, we're going to really stick to something very basic, which is um, we want transparency and accountability in the witch camps. And
Okay. I just want to pause there because we're going to get into the ICT. We promised that in the last video and we are going to deliver. But I do want to just highlight this piece of, I've been thinking about it this week and we talked about there's those who stick their neck out and there's those who don't. And I just want to look at that a little bit because even that phrase stick your neck out, to me it makes it seem like you're sticking your neck out to get ready, for the guillotine or something, or to, you're sticking your neck out because there's a risk involved. And when I think about sticking your neck out, I think Aquarius. So and we're headed into these very Aquarian times, and we're having to look at the architecture of community with Pluto in Aquarius that's dead and dying, that's got a shadow, that's not healthy anymore, that needs to be removed. And I think the power, which is also Pluto of Aquarius, is going to start to rise. And those who do stick their necks out on behalf of authentic, truthful, real community are going to come a bit more into the forefront. And the Leo folks who are more, let's just keep everything nice and friendly, that's going to be a more challenging place. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about those who stick their necks out and those who don't and why. And you spoke about fear. What else? What else do we have?
well, yeah, Fern, I love just even the community. I want to just give a little history too of the community because when I got in reclaiming, I thought it was a community of stick your necks out, right? It was activism, feminism, and in the 80s, I talked about the coven, it being a community of covens. It was a community of covens, and it was a community of affinity groups.
Hmm.
There were a whole bunch of people who still don't call themselves witches, who we were interacting with. There was a bit of a Venn diagram of like the activist affinity groups and then the witches, right? I was just out to dinner last night with someone who sticks her neck out, who doesn't call herself a witch, but has been part of my life since the 80s. And, you know, I got into reclaiming really thinking this was it, right? This was this. And what happened over those years of when we went more into witch camp culture, and I was a voice, I had been a voice. I mean, there's so many things I spoke up about. I didn't like pay scales. I don't like pay scales, right? I don't even like the marketing yourself uh, as a priestess,
Mhm.
right? Now this gets it's there's so many ways to go here, right? There's the way of like the underpinnings of the magic, right? Reclaiming comes from a fairy tradition, which is an ecstatic tradition. Um, and some of the underlying things about fairy, like the iron pentacle and the pearl pentacle, as I've grown older, I was like, mistakes were made. Those are pentacles are sex, pride, passion, self. I forget
Very Leo, by the way, Leo Scorpio.
what? What?
That pinnacle is very Leo Scorpio.
It's totally
Pride, the
Leo.
passion, yeah.
It's totally Leo Scorpio. And what it didn't, if I mean, this is more a pentacle that I work with, generosity, kindness,
Hmm.
service,
Hmm.
gratitude,
Yeah.
honesty,
Hmm.
right? That's a better pinnacle. That's a better pinnacle for a spiritual community.
Yeah.
And we got nada. That's not in any of, when we wrote the print, I'm going all over the place, but maybe that's Aquarian too. But um, I I'm very proud that I was part. of writing the principles of unity for reclaiming, which it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't, I don't think it has kind, I don't think it has any of those in it actually, but it's positive and it's and the funny part in it is has a whole part about the questioning attitude of like wanting dialogue and being okay with questioning. Well, I can say quite honestly, that's not, depends what questions you ask.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. Well,
It de-
there's been an entrenchment, which I think always happens in any kind of community where people kind of want things to stay the same. They don't want investigation. They don't want the vibrancy that comes when you shake things up a bit, which, that is that Uranian Aquarian piece. And we're in the Fool's Journey. We've entered the year of the Tower, and there is a necessary shaking up and explosion that happens of the old structures to make way for a new, better, more solid structure. And so I think, we didn't plan this conversation to happen in alignment with the year of the Tower, but it is happening. And you and I both are very Uranian in our chart. And so we resonate with the, well, let's look at what's going on here really and let's speak to it. And we both have gotten in trouble for that. Now, so to put some framework around that with the ICT, the Independent Craft Teachers, that was a group of the stick your neck outers who came together, who had been part of reclaiming, who had taught, and wanted to make some changes, wanted the tower energy to come in a bit.
yes. What happened, the story I told last time about what happened at BC camp. This was a group of us who've been teaching witch camps, and we're seeing stuff that we did not like, right? Um, and especially in our home community, right? No transparency, no accountability, um, no no uh, no honesty, really, about what how the structures were. And like I t said last time too, I mean the whole story of like, doing a sex workshop and then having sex with the young hotties, not okay. But it was okay here. It was okay here in the Bay Area. Um, and so the group of us who were teaching witch camps, we all were doing what Ron Dellums called butt power, sitting through meetings, right? You're sitting through meetings, right? Sitting through meetings, trying to keep, water on rock. We want the witch camps, and some of this started to do, like BC camp was transparent. They said where their money was coming from. They gave an
Yeah,
accounting of money. They gave, no sex with campers. No, here's what our drug and alcohol policy is, right? So
yeah.
the ICT, we started to do butt power, sit in meetings, and ask for the things that we wanted. Um, and we made a proposal. Well, I'm going to back up a second. Before we actually made the proposal, um, one of the ICT was in a meeting. I think it was a wheel meeting, which was the group reclaiming when the collective broke up. And we broke up because reclaiming had gone so much bigger than the Bay Area. So you couldn't really have the reclaiming collective just in the Bay Area. So we tried to create these other structures. The wheel, where people representatives, it was kind of like the collective, but we were not the collective, we were the wheel. And one of the women from the ICT was in the meeting and talking about the desire, especially around the local witch camp, for transparency, um, and a way to not have it just be one person forever. Well, she got told, fuck you, in the meeting and berated very horribly. And she had a problem with it and said, it's not okay to say fuck you in the sacred space. We did meetings in sacred space. Um, and so the response uh, still upsets me to tell this actually. The response was at the next ritual, Bridget ritual, um, the person who said fuck you did a fire invocation, which basically was fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Sacredness of fuck you. And I was standing next to my friend
Okay.
who now is departed, dead.
Mhm.
Um, it was devastating. It's like our this was it was sacred space, and so many people in that room knew
Yeah.
what that invocation was about.
Yeah.
So it gives you that story gives you this is what we were up against. You stick your neck out. You stick your neck out, and it's okay somehow in a public ritual to people knew she was being a target right then,
Yeah.
right? Fuck you. So the intensity, like I said last time, the listening circles, the
Yeah.
character assassination, the ICT, that's what, yeah, I was not alone in being a target. So
Yeah. Let me
we,
just, I just want to go back to that to emphasize, okay? So when somebody challenges the power that is in control, basically the entrenched systemic money-making system, when somebody goes up against that, what happens is they get attacked. And not only do they get attacked, but even though privately people may voice their support for the people who get attacked, publicly that doesn't happen. Publicly, it's like, let's just keep things going the way they have been, support the people that have been supported, and the people who spoke up, we're going to either pretend like they didn't speak up or we're just going to ignore the whole situation, which I guess is pretending that they didn't speak up.
no, absolutely. And like we said, I mean, like, where I said about fear, like the fear of losing community. You don't want to lose your community. So you're willing to sit through a ritual where someone says, fuck you to, um, to
Because
say,
if you speak up, you become a stick your neck outer and you also get attacked. And
yeah.
this
And,
is,
and so, I think name's Dr. Ramani. I mean, this is all over the internet now
oh
about
yeah.
narcissism, right?
Yeah.
About narcissism and it's so overwrought, but
Mhm.
you can call it narcissism or you can call it bullies, right? There's bullies. There's bullies
Oh,
in the world, and there's
interesting.
bullies in spiritual community, right? I mean, reclaiming is
For sure.
not alone in that. And Dr. Ramani has like 6 types of enablers, and I will not remember them all, but I do think the fear of losing your community, right? The
Mhm.
fear, the self-serving. It's like, oh, I'm in a position with this person in power, and I get to teach at witch camps, and I am marketing myself, and will not go well if I stick my neck out,
Yeah.
right? So,
And
um,
there's just that sense that if I speak up about this situation, which inherently to my integrity, I don't really agree with, but I will lose things. And this is
I
just
will
from
lose, I will
I
lose
will
things.
lose my place in community. I may lose some money. I may lose some status. And I'm just thinking about this recent situation in the astrology community around, a big public astrological figure. And a very similar dynamic has played out where there are those who've been speaking up and getting attacked, and those who have been keeping quiet or wanting to keep the status quo going and hoping because they don't want to lose whatever it is that they have to lose. So,
But I mean, again, community, like it's so precious. And this is partly too, I've thought a lot about this, is like I definitely felt an incredible loss with not being in that community. But the truth of it is that community that I joined was not the community that I left,
Oh, wow.
right? And the community I joined was not the community I left. Um, and I have my community. I have, I have incredible privilege. I have a therapy colleague community. I have an activist community. Um, you and I were part in the late 90s and early 2000s, like really engaged in the activist community. And I
Mhm.
have the community like last night with my friend of like the old activists who weren't witches. I still have my friends, right? And as community is who shows up.
We have the Fool's Journey community.
We have the Fool's Journey community. We created a community, right? We created a fabulous community, right? Scoop Nisker, who used to be a radio personality in the Bay Area, said, if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own.
There you go.
I'm good at that. You're good at that. We did that. So this thing of the sticking your neck out, I really did think I joined a community where we'd stick our necks out
Mhm.
and activists, right?
Mhm.
And wow, I mean, I think I put a link on the other on one of either one or two about dissent. I wrote an article about dissent in reclaiming. I
Yes.
mean, it still holds. It still holds.
Yes.
It's really dangerous. I mean, when you have bullies in positions of power, and you have it's really important. It's been very important to me that my spirituality is about service,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. And I think, you said it's
Really
very
about,
dangerous, when you have bullies in community, it's dangerous to speak out, but I think it's even more dangerous if you don't speak out. What happened when a bully, when there are not enough stick your neck outers and a bully is controlling a community and nobody speaks up, that gets pretty dangerous.
it's dangerous and you lose the community.
Yes.
Now, you and I have a mutual beloved friend who is still by threads in reclaiming. Um, and I'll just painfully, I mean, I think I don't know. We can ask her why she didn't speak out, but she didn't speak out, and she's losing her community because now there's another bully,
Yes.
right? And the bully targeting her.
Yes.
Um, and when you have a bully, it leads to more bullies.
Yes, because it makes that behavior acceptable. It normalizes it. And that, looking at the bigger kind of collective political situation, we've got a number of unchecked bullies running amok right now. And so the question is, how do you stick your neck out in a way that, you don't lose it?
Well, it shows when you do if you're in a community and you stick your neck out and you get turned on, get the fuck out of that community, right? Get the fuck out of it. And it took me way too long. And I mean, it was partly the ICT, and I'll go back to that we made a very simple proposal to take there was a witch camp council that representatives from all the witch camps went. And, another member of the ICT, butt power. We sat through witch camp councils and tried um, to promote transparency and accountability. And basically, like, what's your structure? Like, put that up on the description of the camp. What is your structure? Um, so we created this very simple proposal. Uh, we proposed that witch camps all put up their policy around um, sex with campers, around drugs and alcohol. We asked them to put up how they are financially structured, right? How they pay teachers, because this was a controversy I was embroiled in for years of like, I don't want to be on a team where I'm the uh, I'm the highest paid teacher, and there's a pay scale.
Yeah.
So we stopped I stopped fighting about the pay scale. It's just be honest about it. What is the structure? So
Yeah.
you would have thought, I mean, we got accused of personally attacking.
Yeah, whoever was in charge of the, yeah. Well, and what I find interesting, I mean, I remember the one British Columbia, BC witch camp that I was a student teacher at. And at that point, I'd been involved in reclaiming for a number of years. It had been a very challenging process for me to get into that role of even being a student teacher, and for a number of reasons. One of them, me being a stick your neck outer, but I remember myself and the other student teachers staged kind of a mock protest around the pay scale. And you were part of that team also, and you were very much, on our side, union representation style. But one thing that I have noticed, just fast forwarding a little bit, when I've taken a look at some of the websites for current witch camps, is that those proposals the ICT fought for actually do show up. However, this is one I found kind of funny, is that while there's like a clearly communicated policy around drugs and alcohol, there's missing the sex part and the money part. So it's like sex and money seem pretty critical, especially if you've got a pinnacle, that involves some of those dynamics. So it's funny how there was a picking and choosing of, oh, this is good, but we're only going to take this part of it.
Yes, no, absolutely. And the money part is so core, right? The money part's so core
Yeah.
because, and that's what changed in the culture. It wasn't about service. It became about marketing, right?
Yeah.
And people marketing, it's so tricky. That could be a whole other thing that, what do you do when you're in a supposedly non-hierarchical community and you have a famous author who that's her profession is writing and priestessing? Well, what I saw is that that became a model of what people wanted to do. Now, nobody has been as successful as Starr in her writing. I've looked at some of the books that have come out of people trying to follow that model. No
Mhm.
one's as good a writer as about the craft as she is. That I haven't seen
Agreed.
it. Yeah. But that became a model, and it really changed from the whole goal, like you trying to be the glamour was in being a witch camp teacher and the exclusion, right? Who gets to be a witch camp teacher? Right?
Yeah.
And, let's just have honesty about it. What is the process? And, you know,
Well, you could see who gets to be a witch camp teacher by who did get to be a witch camp teacher. And if you saw, if you saw who got chosen, you would see people who had certain charisma, who had, particular talents like singing or acting or being very kind of extroverted and performative. You did not necessarily see people getting chosen to be witch camp teachers who were more quiet or internal, but had good teaching skills, for example. So that's something that I've definitely observed over the years in terms of witch camp teacher profiles. Not to say that there aren't plenty of people who have skills, who are extroverted, who are great teachers. I've seen that too. I think, and there's plenty of people who are quiet and introverted who are not good teachers. I don't want to, put this judgment on it, but there definitely was a particular profile that dominated the camp teacher kind of scene, so to speak. And I have no idea these days, having not been to a witch camp in so long, what that looks like. But that is how it looked when I was more involved in reclaiming.
I wrote an article, I can't remember, it maybe was called An Aromancer's Dream about my drawer of oils and how when you make a blend, when you make a magical blend of essential oils, you want a combo. You want a strong scent. You want a subtle scent. You want a combination of things. And you are so accurate. what happened with time is it just became was kind of like, I mean, there was some years, and I don't know if it's like that anymore. It would be the Battle of the Titans. I was literally at, you know, I was literally at a witch camp where it's like every morning someone would say, "Oh, I had a dream. I had a dream last night, and I need to lead that trance tonight." And oh, I mean, and I'm not, I mean, yeah, I'm a big personality, so I fit in. I'm the strong smell, right? I am the strong smell. But I mean, God, the 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 fights for power, even on a witch camp team,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other story, but I got basically, as my one of the organizers said, this isn't Survivor. You can't throw her off the island. But I was on a team where when we started to meet, I said, and I was one of the
Why
highest.
not? Why can't we make a witch camp reality show? That would be
Right.
highly engaging.
It could. I mean, back then it really could. And, it didn't help that we were doing these fairy stories and like, I'm the fairy queen. I'm the fairy queen. It's like, that's another review and reflect. Look at what the stories we told and how it impacted us. We were
Oh
all the fairy
gosh.
queen.
Oh gosh, that's a whole other, yes, maybe we should save that for next time. Okay. So, no, I love that. And it's true. See, this is the beauty and the horror of it is that magic is real. When you start working with these archetypes, you start working with these stories, they come alive. People take them over. To say otherwise is nuts, especially if you've been really witness and, part of it. You
Well, and
see
this is the
the
thing.
stories take over. Yeah.
Okay, this is
Okay.
the thing too, Fern. It's like, I truly believe it's in the craft, as within, so without. So, what are you doing if you're doing magic that's based on a lie? If you have a bully in power and you won't call it out, and
Mhm.
and you go and you have the big tent experience with a charismatic priestess,
Yes.
I will not be so grandiose as to say that leads to us having Trump as president, but,
Yeah.
it's like,
No,
I,
I mean, the Wizard of Oz camp we did was, a very good manifestation of that. Okay, so I think we'll close here. Next time, we either may have a special guest or we may talk more about the witch camp stories and how they came alive, or we may talk about something entirely different. But we are going to continue. So tune in. And your comments and reflections, whether private or public, we welcome. And
yes.
thank you for watching. Signing off, Oak and Fern for this time.